This is the MeatEater podcast coming at you shirtless, severely bug-bitten, and in my case, underwearless.
We hunt the MeatEater podcast.
You can't predict anything.
The MeatEater podcast is brought to you by First Light. Whether you're checking trail cams, hanging deer stands, or scouting for elk, First Light has performance apparel to support every hunter in every environment. Check it out at firstlight.com. FIRSTLITE.com. Joined today by members of the Brooks clan, Wyatt, Aaron, and the novelist Malcolm Brooks. And we'll get to this in a bit, but what brought us here together is that Aaron's son, Wyatt's brother, Malcolm, your nephew, Talon Brooks, died in a mountain lion attack in California in March, and we're going to discuss the circumstances around that. But first, we're going to talk a bit about your guys' family, who's a big hunting and fishing family. And after that incident, after that accident or attack, our good friend Dave Smith from Dave Smith Decoys was telling me of his great affection for your guys' family. And I didn't initially put it together when I saw the name Brooks. I didn't initially put it together that you guys were related to the writer Malcolm Brooks, who I've met and who's here today as well. Aaron, you knew Dave through competitive turkey calling?
Knew Dave through videoing hunts.
Really?
I went up and videoed for DSD.
Oh, you did?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that.
Like running.
You're in the wood business. Are you still in the wood business?
Firewood? A little bit.
Yeah. Well, I see you got a logging hat too. So I don't know. Yeah.
Were you running a camera, like a camera out for him?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
For
Yeah.
Dave?
Yeah. Well, for Colpin, it was actually through Ron Latshaw from Final Approach.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I got you.
But yes, I've known Brad and Dave for 25 years.
Mm-hmm.
They come down and turkey hunt with us regularly.
In California.
Yeah.
I got it.
Dave's been there a few years. Brad's been there a bunch of years.
And you got into competitive turkey calling?
Mm-hmm.
Do we have any calls around that we can get some lessons?
Do you do any natural voice calling?
No.
You don't?
I did a podcast with DSD, and I did a bunch of calling on there. You could probably look that up.
There you go.
So you got. I'm looking at your stats. You got into competitive calling in 1992, the year I graduated from high school.
Year I was born.
Is that right, Chester?
Mm-hmm.
Cute
Good
as
Lord.
a button.
Good Lord, really?
Yeah. I'm not that. I'm getting old now.
Yeah, now you are. 3-time California state calling champion, 2-year Oregon state champion. So you kind of carpet bagged it down in Oregon and beat them down there.
Mm-hmm.
And in Montana.
And then he came to Montana and carpet bagged to Montana and beat everybody in Montana.
Mm-hmm.
What was harder?
Probably the Oregon one.
That was the best callers.
Mm-hmm.
Then he finished third at the Keystone Open in Pennsylvania. Then you're in the big leagues.
That was the hard one. Those are all the big guys.
Because then you got people that have been hunting turkeys since the beginning of time.
Yeah, all those guys in Pennsylvania are the guys that go to and win nationals every year. So I was called against some pretty good guys there. It was fun.
You still do that kind of stuff?
No. I probably like early 2000s, I just lost interest and stopped doing it.
Did you lose interest in turkey hunting?
No.
Yeah.
No. Turkey hunt a lot.
In California primarily?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But California stopped having calling contests too for like.
Did they
didn't have one.
outlaw them?
They didn't have. Yeah, no kidding. That's probably next.
That is like when you bring up hunting in California, right? Like it's like, how could you ever be a hunter and live there? And it's like, oddly enough, every time I go to California, There's a lot of hunting and fishing to be done.
Oh,
That's
yeah, man.
typically pretty good.
Yeah. Did your dad get you into hunting and fishing, Wyatt?
Oh yeah,
How old are you now?
18.
Yeah. How'd
Yeah.
that get started out?
Just from going out with my dad since I was little.
What's your specialty, man?
Waterfowl.
Probably deer hunting, because I don't know, I'm super patient and I'm always out there the longest.
You don't mind us coming right out and saying that, huh?
No.
And he kills giant bucks.
Yeah.
Blacktails or
Yeah, they're black
mainly?
tail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very
Mhm.
cool.
So you weren't a big bow hunter, Aaron.
No.
How'd you get him into it, or how'd he get into it on his own?
Yeah, mostly just from watching YouTube, stuff like that, seeing it on TV.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So you decided to get yourself a bow.
Yeah, well, my dad's friend gave me his kids because his kid grew out of it.
Okay. And
Yeah.
then what happened?
I just started shooting it and then started hunting deer with it. And then I ended up getting my first one, the bow.
Do you guys do a lot of tree stand stuff for the blacktails in California, or is it mainly
Ground blind.
ground blind?
Yeah.
You do?
Mm-hmm. I've never hunted out of a tree stand.
Do you guys hunt public or private ground?
Private.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you had a secondhand bow,
Mm-hmm.
learn how to shoot it,
Yep.
learn how to hunt deer. Did your brother like to hunt deer?
If it was easy, yeah. Because he wasn't very patient, so he just liked going out and shooting one super fast.
So tell me about patience, man. Like what is that when you say it? What do you mean? I mean, I understand what patience means, but you mean you were willing to sit all day?
Yeah. All day, every morning, every evening.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you just put in the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you guys grow up reading your uncle's books and stuff? You ever look at his books?
Yeah, I've read part of one,
My own kids haven't read my books.
but I'm not a very big reader.
So explain all your guys' relationship. How are you guys tied in with each other?
Well, Aaron's my younger brother.
Okay.
And we grew up in the same region where these guys still live.
Okay.
El Dorado County. It's, gold rush country, foothills country.
Yep.
It's, within an hour of Sacramento, but very rural, the southern part of the county where we grew up. So I was deer hunting and bird hunting first before Aaron was legally old enough to.
Got it.
And then he had already been like kind of a maniacal bass fisherman, even as a real little shaver. So he just segued right into hunting too as soon as he was legally able to do it. And he and I hunted together for years down there. Then I moved to Missoula in '95, and I've been there ever since.
Did you move there to be a writer?
Well, yeah. I mean, I had lived outside of Kalispell for about a year in '92, I guess, and then wound up in Wallowa County, Oregon for a little while, and then back home again in Cali. But yeah, I mean, I was really just enamored by Montana history, Montana culture, the outdoor culture. I mean, it was, really interested in fly fishing when I was in my teens, and knew that the writing culture was what it was in Montana, that, it had these famous writers, and I read all those books, McGuane and Harrison and A.B. Guthrie, and I was just kind of steeped in it in general, and that's where I wanted to go, and never did leave.
My buddies in Missoula used to call Missoula the Paris of West Central Montana.
Oh yeah.
Always cracked me up.
Yeah.
You were a maniacal bass fisherman. Tell me what that means.
Oh, just when I was little, like from when I was like 4 till probably around 15, I just didn't really do it as much. But
Do you guys
That's all I
still
did.
bass fish? Yeah.
Yeah.
Hum it, back up. When you quit when you were 15, but you started being a maniacal bass fisherman at 4?
yeah, 3 or 4.
He was little.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a pond behind our house, and it had large mouths in it.
Yeah.
That's just all he did was down there throw plugs.
So do you tend to get into stuff and get out of it?
No.
Like you got into turkey calling and then drifted out of it?
Yeah, that was just the competitive calling. I just lost interest in it.
Yeah.
But the turkey hunting, we still just
Yep.
hunt a bunch.
And you guys got good turkey still, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Malcolm, tell people your books, man.
Well, yeah. I mean, I guess the thing I'm most known for as a writer at this point, is the 2 novels. The first one's called Painted Horses, and they would probably, both books would equally qualify probably as literary fiction and historical fiction. Painted Horses is set in the 50s in the sort of like Pryor Mountain, Bighorn River region.
Yep.
And it just explores the archaeology that they used to do in advance of like the hydro projects in the 50s and 60s. And that's a very thumbnail. There's a lot in there about like, Ice Age cave art, and it ranges pretty widely. Second book, Cloudmaker, was inspired by these real life Montana teenagers in the Great Depression who were building and flying their own airplanes powered by Model A Ford engines. So, yeah. And now, as of about 2 months ago, I guess, I'm under contract with Simon & Schuster to do a narrative nonfiction, full-length book on like history of early day Butte, Montana.
Oh, really?
Sweet.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Have you read, I don't even want to say the name of the guy, but have you read Pennies from Hell?
No.
It's just an article.
I don't even know if I've heard of it. What?
It was an article in Harper's a long time ago.
Oh, was it? It was.
Yeah.
Starts with
Yeah.
the initials are ED.
So was the first name.
Yeah.
ED.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. Well, I'm a carpenter by trade, and I did a restoration for a friend on a row house on Mercury Street over there, summer before all the COVID stuff started. And I just like deep dove into the history there. I got really super interested in it. And my initial impulse for it was to try to make like a dramatic television show out of that, like War of the Copper Kings sort of era.
Oh, yeah, man.
So I wrote, when COVID hit and I had a lot of downtime, I actually did write a tentative pilot episode for that. But you're probably aware of this, but the publishing industry has just been so turbulent in the last, say, 6-7 years.
Oh, they're going to say the last 6-7 centuries.
Well, yeah, but worse for sort of cultural and political reasons in the last.
Yeah.
So I realized that my odds of selling another full-length novel in the same vein that I had written the other 2 were probably not great. But I was like, well, I've done all this research for this tentative TV show on Butte, and by doing the research, I realized that nothing had really recently been written on the early history of the place in like 50, 60 years. And I was like, wow, I mean, I should just turn this into a narrative nonfiction proposal and see if I can move that. And it took 18 months to do it, but it did happen finally.
No, congratulations, man.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me about, how old was Talon when he died?
21.
21?
Yeah.
He was a musician?
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about your brother, man. Or tell me about your son, whatever makes sense.
Well, yeah, he was super into music and playing guitar. He was really good at it.
And bass fishing. It's like all he did.
Yeah.
Let's go fish.
That's a pretty good combo, really. Yeah.
So he was a bass fisherman.
Yeah.
Big time.
Super into it.
Letting him go.
Mm-hmm.
Making him late for something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anytime he could, that's what he was doing.
And what's up with the music?
I don't know. He just always liked listening to music.
Did he ever record anything?
Just like on his phone.
Gotcha.
And like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But he wasn't big into recording.
What kind of music did he play? What did he listen to?
Mostly metal type of stuff.
Nice.
He was a headbanger.
Metallica.
Oh, really?
All kinds of strange bands. I don't even know.
But he would dip
What
back
they
into
are.
some Metallica.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He was like one of those like intuitively just gifted guitar people where, you know, it's like if you take, like I was, you know, you take guitar lessons when you're a teenager and you think you're like coming along with it, and then all of a sudden you meet some kid who's never had a lesson in his life and you just completely blow the doors off of, you know, even professional musicians to a degree.
You got one of them to your right.
Well, I
Chester's a
wouldn't.
guitar virtuoso.
All right.
I wouldn't go that far. Not even close.
At least that's how he introduces himself.
Yeah, that exactly. Yeah.
Did he want to be a musician? Like, what was his aspiration? His long-term aspiration?
He only played music by himself in his room. I mean, he never played with a band or played with. It was just all. He just loved playing guitar.
Was he kind of a loner?
Yeah, kinda.
I don't know. You get good at bass fishing, get good at guitar. That makes sense too. Stay away from the ladies.
What line of work was he going toward?
He hadn't really figured it out yet,
Yeah.
but well, I mean, he always talked about wanting to do like bass tournaments and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But
Did you guys have did he go out in a bass, you guys have a bass boat, like rigged with electronics kind of stuff and like Bassmaster Classic kind of fishing?
no, we just
No.
have an old John boat.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Cool.
So he thought maybe he would get into that.
Yeah.
Did he go to college at all?
No.
No.
Mm-mm.
Are you fixing to go to college?
No, I'm not gonna go.
Had you thought about it at a time?
Yeah, well, my plan was to go,
Okay.
but I just decided no.
When did you decide no?
Like after my senior year, before the next year school is gonna start, like during that summer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think about doing instead?
Well, I was gonna go to be a firefighter, and then I ended up going a different route that didn't require college. And so that's what I do. I did wildland firefighting
Okay.
last year for a private company out of Georgetown. And then my plan is to just get my EMT so I could work full time instead of seasonal.
But you still want to be a firefighter?
Yeah,
Okay.
for the most part, yeah.
I'm going to introduce you to someone. I'm going to volunteer him as a mentor because he's a Sacramento firefighter.
Okay.
Yeah. He'll tell you what's what. I can tell you one
Right.
thing I know. It was a lot better to get in a long time ago.
I'm thinking about something like playing with fire. Like, what about being a welder? Make a bunch of cash, create stuff, always have
No.
a job.
I'm not really
You want to
into
be
it.
a firefighter. If you like to hunt and fish, firefighting's the way to go.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But a lot of firefighters, because you go in and you work, you know how it goes. You go in and you just live there for days and work around the clock, and then you get a little bit of chunk of time off.
Yeah.
And it's like a predictable schedule.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you like go through hell for 4 days or whatever it is, and you kick it for a couple days.
Yeah.
Yeah, or you go through hell for like 8 days, and then you kick it for a lot more days. And then sometimes you're like, I want 12 days in a row,
Yeah.
and then I'll see you in 3 months.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good hunting and fishing pursuit. But a lot of firefighters I know start a second business
Mm-hmm.
because
Yeah.
they're too ambitious. That's not how you want to do it. It's not how you want to do it. You want a second business of hunting and fishing. Did you and your bro spend a lot of time in the woods?
Yeah, a decent amount.
Yeah. Like, what would you guys go and do?
Mostly we would just turkey hunt together.
Okay, so he liked that.
Yeah, that was his favorite.
Yeah.
Turkey hunting. Yeah.
You guys obviously did some shed hunting together.
Mm-hmm. Which he wasn't very into that because of all the walking he had to do.
I was gonna ask, did he have patience for turkey hunting? Turkey hunting, you got to have some patience.
Yeah, but that was it. Only turkey hunting.
So he didn't like no walking, no waiting.
Not really, no.
No. Did he get some deer?
Yeah, he got 2.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And you guys went shed hunting for deer antlers or what?
Yeah.
Did you think
A
of it
few
like
times.
scouting, or you just wanted to find the antlers?
When I would shed hunt spots I was gonna hunt, I'd kind of scout it out while I was looking, but mostly just to find the antlers.
Yep.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question about your area there? Are you susceptible to poison oak?
I don't get it very badly.
I don't know how you guys can live in that area.
Do you get it bad?
Dude, it's all over my hands right now.
Yeah, I don't get it.
Just because you walked in the room, he's got poison oak on his hand.
So you get it worse than anyone I've ever seen,
Yeah,
though.
man. I had to quit hunting California. I've been in places in California where the primary vegetation is poison oak.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the primary people. It's not like watch out for poison oak. It's watch out for vegetation because the primary plant species, like you look, it's a poison oak monoculture.
Yeah, it's all over.
Oh my god, please!
I fell asleep in an orchard in California one time hunting black-tailed deer,
Yeah.
and I woke up and I simultaneously had a tick going in my nostril and in my ear canal
Oh my god.
to the point of like just barely being able to grab them. And I used to think about that in like a PTSD style nightmare for years because it was just on the edge of being able to claw them out of my face. And it was happening in two vents at the same time.
Wow.
That's California.
When you guys are knocking around in your area, so how far? When you and your brother got attacked, how far were you from your house?
It was like a 30-minute drive, I would say. Yeah.
And what was the kind of, describe the area to me? Was it ranch, like cattle country?
No, it was more foresty type area, but
Is it an area you'd spend a lot of time in?
no, that was our first time going to that spot. Yeah.
What brought you to that spot?
Well, my dad told me about it, and then
Told you what?
that they used to find sheds up there,
Okay.
turkey hunting and stuff.
All right.
So then we just decided to go check it out.
Is this an area you got? Do you guys see a lot of lions in your area? Like, is it common to run into lions?
On trail camera, we see them a lot.
Yeah.
See him driving, see him cross the road.
Yeah.
Aaron hit one in broad daylight with his pickup one time.
Whoa.
It's like 10 years ago. Just jumped out right in front of the truck and just ran it over. I thought it was dead, but it managed to get up and limp off the road, and I don't know what happened to it.
Never
but,
found it.
Mm-mm.
Huh.
But yeah, everyone's seeing lions everywhere.
Does that feel like it's increased a lot in your lifetime?
Oh, it's increased in the last
Yeah.
like 4 or 5 years, just like snowball increase,
Yeah.
like escalation to like a degree that is like pretty clearly indicates that they've just become completely habituated to the human, population residential zones down there at this
Understood,
point. Yeah.
You know what's on a different subject, just about wildlife biology in California. The last time California had a black bear management plan, they did it in 1989, and they had an estimated population of 20,000 black bears. They just put a new management plan out for comment. The comment period is closed. And like if you go down the middle of the range, the middle of the estimated range is 65,000.
Yep.
Jeez.
They looked at they were looking at the relationship between black bears and mountain lions, and some research there of the collared mountain lion. So when a mountain lion, and this work was done in Mendocino National Forest. If a mountain lion kills a deer in Mendocino National Forest, there's a 75% chance that they will lose that deer to. There's a 75%. Sorry. If a mountain lion kills a deer in Mendocino National Forest, there's a 75% chance that a bear will come to that carcass site, there's a 76% chance that the bear will take the deer from the lion, which greatly ups, right? Which greatly ups the amount of work the lions are doing to be on the landscape as the bear numbers come up. Like it's sort of had this cascading effect of how lions behave and how lions utilize the landscape.
Well, I mean, you're kind of pointing to like one of the bigger contextual issues that involves this whole thing, and that's that California really doesn't have good, what we would regard as like North American model-based comprehensive wildlife management. It's just it's a much less traditional. You can hardly even call it a model at this point. Like the lions themselves were, by ballot biology, essentially 35 years ago, they were declared a specially protected species in the state of California.
Was that under Reagan?
No,
Oh.
What Reagan did was done for more traditional management reasons. They were just trying to. There, like a lot of hound guys back in that era in the late '60s and '70s, were concerned that maybe they had taken too many lions back during the bounty era.
Oh, got it.
And then it was a free for all. The bounty system ended in like '62 or '63.
Okay.
And it was a literal free-for-all at that point. There was no management objective or plan in place nobody knew how many lions there were. Nobody had really studied them very, effectively.
You could make cash killing them year round.
You could, I mean, and you could merely pursue and kill them year round. So I think what happened was a lot of guys who liked to run them were realizing that maybe they were tipping too far in the take direction.
Yeah.
So Reagan signed a kill moratorium into effect in 1972.
Okay.
But that did not prevent guys from being able to run them. They could still run them, tree and free. And the kill moratorium was in effect until 1985 or 86. It was 14 years long.
Okay.
So at that point, they had collected enough data and realized that the population was definitely stable. And the hound guy,
they hadn't killed them in 14 years.
Hadn't killed them in 14 years. Yeah. So at that point, they relisted them as a game, as a game species, and they were going to manage them comprehensively with everything else. Well, HSUS and the Mountain Lion Foundation and basically like animal welfare, animal protectionist NGOs got completely up in arms about it, and they managed to, by popular ballot measure, have the species declared specially protected. Again, for zero science, there's no scientific basis to this at all. It was strictly, the ability to appeal emotionally to a population that
they didn't come in and argue population dynamics. It was more like, we're not here to argue population levels. We're not here to argue sustainability.
Right.
We don't want people to legally be able to kill mountain lions.
Right. It was
not a conversation about how many there are.
Strictly an ideological or philosophical, impetus for that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. But divorced from any conversation.
Totally divorced.
Harvestable surpluses.
Exactly. Yeah.
Gotcha. And that really led to a lot of increase.
And so I'm actually, this is another thing that's going on. I just signed a contract with the New York Times Magazine to write about this entire issue and like really explore like through the lens of what happened to the boys and to our larger family as a result of it, and then really the entire region. This really impacted that foothills region hard, because so many people had been increasingly nervous about the behavioral changes in the lions that are just palpable to everybody. You can, people see them everywhere. They're jumping into people's backyards and taking dogs. They're breaking into chicken coops. They're totally blasé about, just being seen in broad daylight. And it was certainly not that way when we were growing up around there.
Right. It's no longer this thing that if you spend enough time outside or driving in like the twilight in certain areas.
Yeah.
If you get really lucky, you might see one.
Exactly. But when we were kids, I mean, we knew they were there. We knew guys who had hound kennels and who ran them. And we would hear lions scream from time to time down in the canyon behind our house. Everybody knew that they were around, but if somebody saw one in broad daylight, it would make the local newspaper because it was just such a anomalous event.
Do you remember a few years ago? Can you find? Do you mind looking up what year this was? There was one summer a few years ago when Washington had its first documented mountain lion fatality.
Yeah.
And then Oregon had its first in 90 years. And that happened the same summer.
Yeah.
And I was talking to a friend of mine who does a lot of work. He'd done a lot of depredation work for the state of Oregon.
Yep.
2018. He'd done a lot of depredation work for the state of Oregon. And I was talking to him. I'm like, how much is that just freak? Like, how much of that is freak coincidence and how much of that is something different? And to paraphrase him, I mean, we had a long conversation about it. His take was, there's a huge freak element, right? There's a huge freak element that you can't discount, like in the same summer, right?
Sure.
But he said also, like, in my career, I have seen a major change in the management attitude around lions, where it used to be when a lion kind of came up against that human threshold, there was serious pushback. Like, you know, if the lion was too aggressive around livestock, was too blasé around people, we would kill the lion.
Right.
Yeah, just too apt to be seen.
Yep.
Yeah.
And he said, and since then, it's been pushed and pushed and pushed to not take action. So he felt, as much as it's crazy that in the same summer we'd see that, it aligns with what I'm seeing, which is a great reluctance on the part of the state agencies for fear of public pushback.
Right.
Often coming from people who aren't dealing with them, for fear of public pushback of being too aggressive around depredation issues, too aggressive around hazing lions, too aggressive around taking any kind of control measure. So he wasn't shocked.
Right.
That it happened.
Yeah, well, when you break down even like the state in California is ground zero for, you know, exactly what you're talking about, because the degree of like public sentiment that can be steered, you know, both by, you know, just sort of hyperbolic, sensationalistic, you know, media reportings. I mean, they'll report that there are an estimated 4,500 lions in the state of California, and people hear that raw number and they automatically are like, holy mackerel, they must be on the verge of extinction, which is not the case. I mean, the state of Montana has between 5,000 and 7,000. Right. And the state of Montana estimates that is within 25% of the pre-European contact number. So, I mean, if you've got this apex predator, there just are not that are territorial, and there are not that many of them saturating, as a rule, a really large land space. But, I mean, in California, because you have, you know, again, animal welfare and animal protectionist NGOs who are ideologically committed to a certain outcome, right? And they've got very deep pockets. They're very well funded. And they're very able to manipulate the sort of, you know, the media sensationalistic dimension of things to achieve ends through non-scientific means and non-official means. I mean, you put something on a ballot, if you get enough, you know, people who are just probably perfectly well-intentioned with the way that they vote. They're just naive or, you know, undereducated, underinformed on what the, you know, the actual boots on the ground situation is for others who live in more rural areas and actually have to deal with the fallout of restricting traditional management policies. So.
I hear that, you know, like people say like uneducated or uninformed, but also just different.
Yeah.
Just different.
Sure.
A different set of like
different values,
a different worldview.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Now to get, you know, come a little bit full circle here, talking about, you know, what your buddy was observing, he was doing depredation work in Oregon. I'm in contact with, a bunch of people, federal trappers and whatnot in California, who are fighting a totally uphill battle on that front. But if you look at in 2020, the Department of Fish and Wildlife in California decided, again, partially in reaction to public outcry over one of the celebrity lions, the well-known lions around, Santa Monica Mountains or whatever, that was collared and, wound up being taken on a depredation basis. Because of the hue and cry from that, the state Department of Fish and Wildlife decided to implement this universal 3 strikes depredation policy, where the actual depredation language in one ballot measure 117, which is what opened this Pandora's box in the first place, 35 years ago, it does have reasonable depredation provisions in it, where it basically says that if a livestock producer, pet owner, whatever, can demonstrate that there was a single instance of depredation by a lion, the state is supposed to issue a lethal, it's shall issue language, depredation permit to be able to, get a, contract with a trapper or whatever to go ahead and lethally pursue that animal. Well, they changed that again because of, I think, just cosmetic reasons, like wanting to appear to a certain set of the California voting population. They changed that in 2020 to a universal 3 strikes policy, in which now a single landowner has to demonstrate that multiple incidents of depredation have occurred from the same lion before they will issue a lethal depredation permit.
So it's like the thing with the felons, like 3 felons, now, I don't know when that was fashionable. I remember that becoming a thing in Michigan when I was growing up.
Yeah.
They had, your 3rd felony, you're out.
Right. Yep. Like it's a baseball game.
Up until then,
Yeah.
just try to calm down.
Yeah. So
when you've committed 3 felonies, that's enough.
Yeah. Let me just close this point with this, because this is really critical. Between 1995 and 2019, there were a dozen lion attacks on humans in the state of California, with one fatality in 2004, I believe, a mountain biker in Southern California.
Orange County, right?
I think so. Yeah. Between 2020 and now, after they changed that depredation permit policy, there have been 9 attacks on humans, with Talon representing the single fatality out of that group. But I mean, if you think about that, you have a 25-year period in which they're doing, the more traditional prescription for depredation permits, and you get a dozen attacks. Literally the same year that depredation policy changed, that put into motion a 4-year 9 attack tally on humans. Yeah. So, I mean, is it anecdotal? Yeah, to a degree, but is it difficult to sort of argue with the, math? I mean, I don't think it is, especially when, again, I mean, the number of daylight sightings and livestock and pet depredations has just skyrocketed during the same period.
Yeah, it's in California, mountain lions kill mountain lions, vehicles kill mountain lions, and secondary rodenticide poisoning kills mountain lions.
And that's about it, except for the
explain that.
Well, a lot of landscaping golf courses in California, and so they use a lot of rodenticide.
Okay.
And then the foxes, coyotes eat the squirrels that have died from rodenticide, and then the mountain lions knock those guys out.
Is that a thing that has to happen from long-term exposure, or is that can that be a one and done deal?
It can be a one and done deal, but it's not going to be like the single factor from all the stuff I've read. I'm not an expert here, right? But it's a compounding condition, because a rodenticide is an anticoagulant.
Yeah.
And so also it's how much is that cat getting from eating something that's eaten something?
Yeah.
Right. So
there's another thing at play, I think, when it comes to California and public perception of predators. And it's for expecting the public to have the kind of mental elasticity,
right,
to understand that different places have different situations.
Yeah.
And to to back out on that and use another example to illustrate what I'm saying on a broader scale, it would be that elk, okay,
Yeah.
elk have only been recovered,
Right.
or let's say elk only exist on 14% of their native range in the lower 48.
Right.
Okay. Wisconsin, Indiana, Kentucky,
Yeah.
Tennessee, like that was elk country.
Oh yeah.
Everywhere was elk country.
It was buffalo country.
There were western Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you had eastern forests with elk. Like in Daniel Boone's day, they hunted elk.
Yep.
They're not there now. But you're able to have conversations about there being too many elk in Colorado coming from an agricultural perspective.
Sure.
And no one says, well, how could that be true? They haven't been recovered in Tennessee.
Right.
But you're able to say, well, because it's a different place and there's a different thing going on.
Right.
And what's happening in one place isn't happening in another place. So I think that when they had that excitement for years with the guy that got the picture of the lion by the Hollywood sign.
Right.
And it was this lion that was, isolated and boxed in by highways. And there was this big outpouring of empathy for this cat living in this unexpected landscape.
By himself, socially isolated.
Socially isolated, so full of risk, right? You hear that and hear that and hear that, and it creates in your head a image of something that is desperately imperiled.
Right.
And then that's in your head, and then it becomes hard to understand that you can go a few hundred miles away into a different range of hills, a different mountain range, and have a completely different situation on the ground.
Sure, and along with that, I mean the more urban and suburban population down there, they're assuming that the entire state, probably unconsciously, but there's a presumption that the entire state looks like their swimming pool and yard fence, 6 houses to an acre, Southern California tract development. But it doesn't. I mean, the rural foothills where we're from are still, there's so much of that is literally undevelopable just because of the geographic nature of the terrain.
And the brush situation in California, just like we talked about the poison oak, you can hide a lot of animals in that stuff.
Oh,
that
absolutely.
Just are not going to get seen.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I recently did the drive from Sacramento to over by Fort Bragg.
Yeah. The Russian River area.
Dude, unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
Just the country in there.
Oh, yeah.
And the shit that you would not want to, not want to, but that would be hard stuff to go through.
Oh, totally. Even
So
if you go down,
country.
go down Highway 1 by Big Sur or go, the whole state is, yes, there are huge, dense population zones, but it is a massive state with a lot of very wild land in it still.
Yeah.
For sure.
Why? How comfortable are you talking about the day you and your brother were attacked?
I think I'd be fine talking about it.
Can you tell me what kind of how the morning went, whatever, what your plan was, what you guys did?
Yeah, so
How it came to be that you decided to go out with your brother,
well, we were just sitting at home bored. And so I asked him if he wanted to go. And so we both decided just to go try a new spot. So we drove up there, and there was a gated Forest Service road. So I just pulled off the side, and we just decided to walk that road.
Had you seen other folks around?
There was one other car pretty close to us because there was a walking trail that they were stopped at. But we pulled up past them.
Okay.
Were you doing the classic hunter's mental gymnastics of is that somebody looking for sheds that's parked at the hiking trail? Or is that some old lady walking her poodle?
No, I don't know.
I know what Cal's saying because I have the problem. I could be out doing the most esoteric thing on the planet. Like I could be, let's say I wanted to find a railroad spike for some reason, and I see a car parked. I'm like, that son of a bitch is looking for railroad spikes. Do you know what I mean? Like every car is doing what I'm trying to do in my head.
Beat me to it. Yeah. Competition. Sorry, go ahead.
Yep, sons of bitches are looking for morels.
Yep. Oh, anxiety.
Oh, nope, they're just walking their dog.
Yeah. So you guys get parked and you start walking it up the Forest Service road.
Yeah, and we get like 150 yards away from my car, and I'm looking up to the left because the right side of the road is just steep. So I wasn't looking down there. So as I'm looking to my left, I see something like out of the corner of my eye come up from the steep side up onto the road. And at first I just thought it was a dog.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first thing that came to mind. And then that's when I turned and looked and realized. And then so I told my brother to look. But it came up like 10 yards away from us.
And you feel like you're 150 yards from the car, from where you parked? Or from the gate?
Yeah, we were walking for like 5 minutes. Like, yeah.
What time of day?
Like 1:30, just midday. But
The heat of the day. I would say it like that.
So yeah, so I look, tell my brother to look, he looks, and then so we both just start putting our arms up and yelling at it, but it doesn't care at all. It just looks calm, and it's just walking towards us slowly. And so we're backpedaling down the road, which the line was above us because the road was heading down. And so it's just walking towards us. And the only thing I could think of is to throw my backpack at it because I had a backpack on. So I sling that off, throw it at it, and it hits the left side of its face.
Mm-hmm.
But it kind of, like, it didn't even really flinch. Like, it just closed that left eye. And then the backpack hit it in the left side of the face and then just skimmed across its body. But it didn't care. It just kept walking at us. And then...
Were you guys still yelling or able to stay calm? Or
at that point, it was, I guess, like the adrenaline was kicking in.
This is so bizarre. So bizarre. Yeah. Middle of the day, 150 yards from the truck. I've called in 2 cats in the last 2 turkey hunting seasons. In like places where I really had to walk in.
Yeah.
And both of those cats were more than happy to get the hell out of there when I stood up and looked at them. Once I made eye contact, those cats were gone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So hitting it in the face with anything is just insane.
And it didn't care. And then, so yeah, my brother's like, I'm on the left side of the road, he's on the right, but he's a little bit behind me. And it's like me and the line are just locked eyes with each other. And so it's just walking towards me, but I didn't want to run. So we start to speed up, backpedaling, and there was a stick in the road laying sideways.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm backpedaling and I start to speed up, and then I step on that and my foot slips out from under me. So I fall down, but at that point the lion's already like, I don't know, 6 or 7 yards in front of me. So I fall, and then I just remembered the lion comes around my left side, and then that's when it bites me. So I gotta put my arms up, and then after it bites, I grab it and I flip it over and I get on top of it, and I like have my arms on its neck, pushing it down.
I imagine it doesn't like that.
No, so then it starts clawing at me with
Is it big?
The lion?
Yeah.
It seemed big to me.
Yeah.
But it was what, like 90 pounds?
Yeah,
So-
I mean, I think it was like a juvenile male,
Okay.
Yeah.
basically, probably a little over like half the size that they can actually get to. Yeah.
So yeah, so I flip it over, I get on top of it, and then that's when it starts clawing me, so I kind of release my grip a little bit. So it manages to spin out from under me, and then, but it all happened so fast to where my brother couldn't really even do anything to help me. So he was still standing behind me to my right. So when the lion got up and spun around, like my brother was right there. So then the lion ran at him, jumped up on his back legs, took him down, but it just went straight for his neck. So there wasn't much he could do. And then, so I get up, and like as that's happening, I remember like I just stand there in the road and I touch my face and look because it felt like a dream. Like it was weird. So I kind of had to, I like told myself like this is actually happening. And so I have to I snap back into it. And then that's when I went for my brother. So I just grabbed the lion and kind of tug a few times, but that's all I really did. But I couldn't get it to let go. And at that point, I was feeling kind of weak
Mm-hmm.
because I had been losing a lot of blood. And then, so after I tried tugging, can't get it to get off of him, trying to think of what to do. And all I can think of is my car because I know that they're scared of vehicles. So at that point, well, the reason I did that is because the whole time my brother had his arms, like I could never see his face because the lion was in between me and my brother's face, but I could see his arms doing something up here. But as time went on, and they ended up like almost off the side of the hill, but I could see that by that point his arms were just like limp now.
Not holding it anymore.
Yeah, not holding it anymore, and he wasn't moving, so I just knew there was like nothing else I could really do. So that's when I thought of the car. So I reached for my phone to call 911, and my phone's not in my pocket. So I'm looking around for my phone and I find it in the middle of the road. So I grab it and then I head back to my car. I'm jogging to my car and I pulled my shirt off to hold on my face, stop the blood. And then as I'm trying to dial 911, like the blood kept dripping on my phone, so it wasn't typing. So eventually I got that off and got it to work. So as I'm running to my car, I'm on the phone with 911 and then make it to my car, and then I have to drive around the locked gate. So I'm driving through like small trees and rocks.
Mm-hmm.
And then I get onto the road, make my way down there, but by the time I drove down there, they were both gone. So I flip around and I'm looking out the left side out the window. I'm looking down the hill, but
Sorry,
I
so
didn't
your brother and the cat are no longer on the road,
yeah.
but you have a good idea where it all happened. Your
Mhm.
backpack's laying there or
Yeah,
something.
the backpack was in the middle of the road. Yeah, and I knew right where it had happened, but so yeah, so I'm looking out the window down the hill, but I still don't see anything. So then I just asked what I should do to the dispatcher. And so I drove to the back side of the gate and I just parked there and waited for someone to show up. And
Did they have any sense of what you were talking about when he called? I mean, did they have any did it seem like probably not like an informed opinion about this?
Well, what do you mean?
They probably had never dealt like the dispatcher.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Just no idea what.
Yeah.
No idea how to deal with something like this.
Yeah. No idea.
So it was probably just, okay, stay calm. Somebody's going to be there, that type of stuff.
Yeah, like, wasn't really helping much by telling me what to do. But
Did you have to direct then when they came? Did you take someone to the area?
no, I didn't take them, but it was like a Star Volunteer car was the first car that showed up, and they had a dog and a pistol. And so they just came up to me, and I told them right where to go. I said, like, you'd see the backpack in the road. And then, so they went down there, and then I was just waiting still.
Mm-hmm. Then they shot the lion?
No,
No, that was later.
that was later on, yeah. I don't even know if that person saw it, because it had dragged Talon quite a ways down that hill.
Yeah, the Star Volunteers are like a community watch type, volunteer outfit. They're really not like LAO or
Got it.
right.
Yeah. That's horrifying, man.
Well, it sucked.
Yeah, I don't know, how much this is like within the protocol of this, but last night Wyatt talked to the first responding paramedic for the first time,
Mm-hmm.
or 2 nights ago, I guess. But
Yeah.
he sent Wyatt pictures from the field of of his injuries out there, and which I looked at them last night. Do you feel comfortable showing those to these guys? Because it really is highly illustrative of exactly how crazy this whole thing was.
Why
Of your injuries.
Of me, yeah.
do you remember, because you have some scars on your face, I
Yeah.
assume that's from the cat.
Yeah.
Was that when he first whacked you, like right when you fell, or was that from clawing when you got on top of the cat, or do you remember it all?
I remember, no, it was just the first, it only bit me once, and that's what the scars are from.
Oh, so that's teeth.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's wild.
But, yeah, went like through my nose.
Well, before we go on, man, it's horrifying. It is brutal, and I am so sorry you and the family had to go through this.
Thank you.
It's all I can think about, man. That's very, very hard.
But if you guys want to see the pictures,
No, I'll
I could
take
show
a
'em.
look. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess that's the other thing that it kind of demonstrates is how brilliant the plastic surgeon who worked on him was.
And there's one more picture you can scroll.
So did you, roughly how long before any sort of emergency services show up?
There was some deputies who showed up within like 15 minutes, I'd say. And then the medic came shortly after, like 20 minutes. It took them to get there.
But I imagine even with the deputies there, it was probably just up to you to keep holding your shirt to your face.
Yeah, they didn't really help.
I'm sure they didn't want much to do with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But as soon as the medic got there, though, then they started helping.
Was your brother pronounced dead on the scene?
No, we didn't find out till that night in the hospital. It was pretty late when we found out, right?
But earlier, the sheriff, the deputies, and the sheriff had figured it out
Right.
way
Oh.
before we knew.
Oh.
But so yeah,
But there was nothing they could do to try to help him. He was
No.
dead when they found him.
yeah.
If you had to guess from the time you saw that mountain lion till the time, you had to go back to the truck, was that within a few minutes?
Yeah,
Just
like a couple minutes. Yeah, it was really fast.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Man, this is gonna be like a dumb question because you already know this. Will be the defining experience of your life. Like you're already aware of this,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
It never goes away. It'll impact you in all manner of ways for as long as you're on Earth,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So just like looking at a small detail of that, do you feel this will transform your kind of like your relationship with nature? Do you still feel drawn to go out, to go hunting? Do you still feel drawn to be around animals, or did it sort of kill that in you?
No, I actually went turkey hunting like just a couple weeks after it had happened and got one. So I still feel the same about hunting and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it didn't really have an effect on going out.
What are the things, like from a daily perspective, what are the things you kind of remember most or will miss most about your brother?
Just hanging out, because we always shared a room together. So now it's just kind of empty, I guess.
You guys shared a room at the time.
Yeah, we've shared a room like our whole life.
Do you feel a different, when you're out turkey hunting, do you feel a different fear in the woods?
Yeah, I'm definitely a lot more scared being out there.
Mm-hmm.
But when I'm with people, I'm fine.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Aaron, how has this changed your desire to be out, your relationship with being out?
A little bit. I didn't turkey hunt at all last spring season, which is super weird.
Yeah.
Usually we hunt every single day of the entire season. But I didn't hunt at all. I went with Wyatt just a handful of times just to go with him to try to get him one.
Mm-hmm.
But just feels totally different. Just constantly looking over my shoulder, and it's kind of scary.
Yeah. Do you feel that you'll find your way back into it in time?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's just, this happened right before turkey season opened, so it's like,
It was pretty raw.
yeah, I didn't have any motivation to go hunting.
No, of course not. Yeah.
So,
Man, I'm sorry that happened to you guys, man.
Thanks.
yeah.
I can't even picture having that happen to a brother. Do you have other siblings?
I have a half sister,
Mm-hmm.
but I just call her my sister.
Is she cool?
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. Good. You passed the test. Good job. Good job. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that, you know, it's like, oh, that'll never, that kind of stuff would never happen to us, right?
Yeah.
You know, we're out in the field all the time, and, you know, have had experiences that are definitely scary. But like, for instance, my buddy, I'm not going to mention his name, but a couple years ago had a mountain lion while he was elk hunting, called it in, and it was about 10 yards from him, staring at him for a few minutes. He threw sticks at it, yelled at it, shot an arrow over its back, and it just continued to stay there. So eventually he did have to shoot it, but, you know, he was like lucky in that situation. You know, you just never know.
Mhm. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And he's out there with the intent to kill something much bigger than he is already.
And he had a
Right.
traditional bow that I built him, you know, so if that cat decided he wanted to.
So you knew the bow was capable, is what you were saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's, but I mean, it's just crazy. It's unbelievable.
Well, this situation, broad daylight, there's two of you, there's one cat. Like, it does not make any conventional sense from all my time in the woods.
It's just historically just kind of unprecedented.
Absolutely.
for sure.
Hitting it with something.
Yeah. And it just didn't care.
Yeah, it's just weird.
When you run it through in your head, when you like how much does it feel to you like what happened to you was just such a freak occurrence? Do you know what I mean? Like it was just something that could never happen again, should have never happened. How much of you does it feel like it was like an inevitability or the result of broader things going on in your area?
Well, yeah, I just never even thought that would ever happen, really.
Okay. So you didn't walk around prior to this with a sort of an awareness of, fear of, worry about mountain lions in your area.
No, I mean, yeah, I always had the fear of them because I knew they were there,
Mm-hmm.
but I also always had a gun on me. But in that situation, I didn't. So
Was that road that was 150 miles away, or sorry, 150 yards away? Was that a busy trafficked road or
no, it was just an old Forest Service road.
Forest Service road, and it was behind a locked gate.
Oh, no. Sorry. The main stem Steve's referring to, I think. Like how much traffic's on the road that connected to the Forest Service road that you guys hiked.
It's
Still not real.
still not very much.
No,
but
very little.
yeah.
What kind of? Oh, sorry.
I was going to say, I think where the attack happened is within like less than a mile from some residential housing. Though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
is that right?
it's not super like off the beaten path or in the boondocks.
There's a little.
Development.
Yeah, there's houses back there.
Mm-hmm.
It's right on the edge of private where it meets Forest Service.
Okay.
So, but it's the same lion that you said, the lady with the girls on the bikes?
Yeah, I mean, I went down to California within 4 or 5 days after this happened just to help these guys out. And while I was down there, it was, Placerville, California is our hometown. They used to call it Hangtown. It was, ground zero for the gold rush. I'm sitting in this little cafe and talking to the waitress, and it's somehow, it became apparent to her that, we were the family that this happened to. And she told us, my parents live less than a mile from where that happened to the boys. And she said, I can't even tell you the number of times I've sent my 8 and 10-year-old girls down that road on their bicycles by themselves just to go for a bike ride.
Is that right?
Yeah. And she said, now I can't do that anymore. Well, the county trapper, in conjunction with the county sheriff's department, wound up killing 2 more full-grown toms within the city limits within 2 to 3 weeks after the attack on the boys, and both of them were within 100 yards of an elementary school in broad daylight on a paved hiking trail, or just off of a paved hiking trail. And, the level of awareness was so high in the entire area at that point. They went back and forth with the state, what do we do? What do we do? And the Lions had both treed, and sort of different circumstances on taking each one, but ultimately they euthanized them. The county sheriff just ultimately made the call and said, I have to regard these things as a safety, public safety issue.
Mm-hmm.
So,
has there been any, was that cat territorial? Was it famished? Was it hungry? Any sort of theories done on that?
Yeah, people have kind of thrown it, but again, because of the just extraordinary anomaly of this, there's really no standard of comparison for this particular incident. The cat was healthy. It did not have rabies. They established that. Wyatt initially had to go through preliminary rabies, medications. But they determined ultimately that it did not have rabies. I believe they said its stomach was empty, but other people have, who understand lion behavior, wildlife biologists and whatnot, have also said, well, it wasn't really acting predatory per se, more like territorial, or maybe because it was a juvenile cat, it really didn't know what it was doing. It was just a young, aggressive male. And
he knows he's not wanted in all these other places.
Right.
Because of adult males.
Yeah, well, they had predation on sheep and goats, and right in that same, general area within the prior couple of weeks. So there's also speculation that this was the same cat doing that. Although they are seeing so many lions, and they're seeing lions that are, even like as many as 4 at one time, which is also really bizarre and anomalous. Usually, if you see 2, it's usually a mom and a kitten, or if you see 3, it's a mom and twins. But to see 4 together is also sort of unprecedented a little bit. And a lot of this stuff is documented on like phones and ring cameras and, trail cameras. And so.
I was, couldn't remember the name of the college, so I had to look it up. But Pepperdine, they're in the Santa Monica Mountains.
Yeah.
Was that last year or 2 years ago? They were shutting down the campus because of mountain lion activity on campus. And this is a fancy pants school.
Oh, big time. Yeah, that's like West Coast Ivy League level.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's the other thing I should kind of note here. This happened in the foothills, and that Gold Rush foothills region is a real hot spot. But honestly, it's all over the state that this stuff is happening. Like just increased lion presence and, drastically increased depredation problems with livestock or pets. And then, since 2020, a real increase in attacks on humans. Almost all of them have been kids under the age of like 8. And the reason none of them were fatal is because, it was typically like on the periphery of a park setting or something where there were a bunch of adults around who could, present enough of a, enough
just a
of
presence.
Just a presence, and the cats ultimately didn't kill any of these kids. So that's another reason why this one is so strange. It's most of the attacks are on juveniles, not on a pair of adult-sized males.
Would it take it would take an act of God for California to reinstate lion hunting, right?
Well, they can't because it was passed on a popular ballot measure. The only way to undo that is through a secondary popular ballot measure. So what the state can do, and whether it'll be willing to or not, is, the first thing that they could do immediately, just by internal policy, is return to the original provision for issuing lethal depredation permits. They can do that. There might also, especially after that study that Bart George did in Washington, the hound hazing study, to determine the effectiveness.
I know he's publishing on that soon.
I know, and I've been in communication with him. Also been in communication with the guy who used to be the lead predator biologist for California for 7 years. He now works for Wyoming. His name's Justin Dellinger, and he's like legit wildlife biologist, PhD. North America, totally like very much an adherent to the North American model in terms of his own, personal philosophy for how you go about doing this stuff. But he also grew up in Western North Carolina in a hound hunting family. And so he was hired by the state in 2012 or so, I believe. And for what he did for 7 years was go all around the state, almost every county in California, tree lions and collar. I'm trying to put a data set together. So he told me on the phone that he has since been sort of pressured. He was pressured to leave his position because his management philosophy was so at odds with what the present administration's, department is really, wanting to, the direction that they would like to go or are going. So at any rate, I talked to Dellinger, and he told me that he tried to design a very similar study to what Bart George did in Washington, just to mathematically, quantitatively, scientifically demonstrate the effectiveness of kind of preliminary hound hazing on behavioral conditioning for lions to keep them away from, just make them more evasive, like evasive as they used to be when, there was consistent hound pressure put on them. So, these guys who run hounds and understand, the psychology, if you will, of that, apex predator, they already know that, like, this is what works. It's not necessarily, listing them as a game animal and killing a sustainable number every year. What really works is when we get to, like, pursuit train our dogs on these things and tree and free them. So at any rate, Justin Dellinger put together, he told me, a very similar study and was about to get it green-lighted and funded. And the Mountain Lion Foundation, which is, primary NGO down there that's responsible for a lot of the ballot measure and whatnot in the first place, they caught wind of it and they were able to put enough pressure on the State Department of Fish and Wildlife to have them pull the plug on his study. So, big roundabout way of saying there are like myriad complexities to this in terms of like, how do we get some meaningful management protocols back in place in that region?
I want to explain to folks real quick when we're talking about work Bart George was doing with Kalispell tribe.
Yes,
Yeah.
north of Spokane.
So he was working on this project where they have lions that are on this sort of suburban rural interface.
Mm-hmm.
And they have collars on them so they can tell where the lion is at any given time. And they'll go and play audio of human voices.
Much of it was your voice, I believe.
Yeah, they used for a long time. I don't know if he still does. They use the MeatEater podcast. They
Yeah.
play the podcast out loud. And then they run the lion with dogs. And give it a bad experience getting treated.
Right. And
trying to see if to what degree the being chased and I don't know if they paintballed him or something like that or whatever they would do to him. If you could monitor an individual lion's behavior,
right,
and see if it getting bad experiences when exposed to human voices would make it less wanting to be around human voices, and then watch how it would behave in the presence of human voices.
Yeah, once they
they're publishing their research about, is it possible? Basically, they were trying to set out to validate or refute the assumption that negative experiences will condition lions to stay away from yards and people.
Right. So and they repeated the same process multiple times with this established set of lions that they had collared. And what they basically were able to do was track at what point, at what range the lion would decide it just wanted to get out of Dodge and not encounter people. And initially, in the say the first encounter, these guys were able to get within, feet, literally.
Yeah.
Maybe,
remember him saying getting 15 feet from a bedded lion.
Totally. And they're just, and they're both, you can tell they're both just like, I'm not going any farther, but that thing's right in there. So then they tree that lion. They then call in the houndsman. He trees the lion. Well, they go out again a couple of weeks later, pinpoint the same lion through the, telemetry, and do the exact same exercise again. They approach the lion and this time the lion is much less inclined to let it get 20 feet from it. So they do this exercise a few different times, and by the end of it, the lions are like 100 yards away. They hear a human voice, and they're just like, well, we're out the back door. So, yeah, it's really, that particular episode that Giannis did is really fascinating, and I've sent it to a lot of people just to try to, get people to understand what the missing link in the management chain is here.
Mm-hmm.
So,
what kind of service did you have for your brother? Have you guys had a service for him? Yeah.
Yeah, like a celebration of a life.
Mm-hmm.
it was big.
Yeah.
A lot of people from the town.
Mm-hmm. A ton.
Yeah.
Play some Metallica.
Was there?
Yeah, they played a lot of music that Talon liked.
Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yep.
Man, I appreciate you coming out and talking to us.
Yeah.
Is there anything you want to add, Wyatt?
I don't think so.
No. Aaron, anything you want to add?
I can't think of anything.
Nothing we didn't get to that feels important?
Malcolm, what do you think?
Well, I guess there are two two prongs to this, really. There's the personal family part of it, but then it's also because we've been involved in outdoor stuff, our entire lives and have had to sort of observe the management deficiencies that have led to, an array of things in California. It's not just strictly limited to lions. I mean, there's a lot of problems with bears down there. They have problems with beavers. They completely outlawed trapping again. I don't know if that was a popular ballot measure or if that was an actual like legislative, endeavor or what, but just having observed what happens when you stray from, these established management protocols that were invented by geniuses 125 years ago and are responsible for restoring the pronghorn antelope and bringing back, Canada geese, maybe a little too much, preserving the last of the American bison. I mean, and when you see that whole successful model just jettisoned and the immediate like after effects of it culminating in something like what happened to the boys, we all just got really committed to the idea of attempting to stop the domino effect from going further. Like now we're Colorado is now staring down a very similar ballot initiative, and this happened to happen in advance of that, and we're just hoping that like appearances like this or the writing that I'm about to do about it will reach multiple audiences and lay out a logical case for why it simply does not make sense to cede wildlife management to public sentiment, and hope that we don't have to that California, Oregon, and Washington remain the only ones that we have to actually backtrack on and undo, so that nobody else going forward has to get even deeper into the muck of worst case scenario land.
I find that on some of these bills and some of these ballot initiatives and other, congressional activities, there's a real lack of crystal ball.
Oh yeah.
If you go back to the Wild Horse and Burro Protection Act, right?
Yep.
No one at that time could have ever imagined.
No, it's true.
Right? It was like there's sort of this fading population of wild horses and burros.
Right. And they're not even wild. They're feral.
Sure.
Right, yeah.
Either way.
Yeah.
And they're like, we should do something to permanently, right?
Mm-hmm.
Protect them.
Yeah.
Having no idea that in decades to come, you'd be creating a conservation and humane animal treatment disaster.
Totally.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah. It's the law of unintended consequences.
And so doing these really radical, impossible to reverse policy changes, which sort of like codifies a certain management strategy in perpetuity, strips agencies and citizens of any ability to have like adaptive management.
Right.
When something's in the hands of game commissions and state agencies, they're able to take this really nuanced, not only year to year, but oftentimes throughout the year, constantly evolving, changing needs.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah,
lion populations get kind of alarmingly low. Well, there's steps we can take to bring them up.
Right.
We're getting a lot of conflict. There's steps we can take to mitigate conflict. And they're able to go in and surgically administer something, like meaning a lack of animals in Los Angeles does not mean a lack of animals north of Sacramento. So let's do what's necessary there, and we'll do what's necessary here, and we'll be fluid.
Right.
And all of a sudden you make it that it's a one-size-fits-all, sledgehammer approach to management. And me saying this isn't going to change the perspective of anyone who would like to see these like writ large edicts about wildlife management.
Right.
They know what they're playing.
Right.
They know what they're playing. They like, they're not interested in management. They're not interested in the concerns of rural peoples. They're not interested in the concerns of agricultural peoples.
Right.
Right. Like, it doesn't cost them anything to have no management.
I mean, God, in a way, they're not even interested in the concerns of other animal protectionist, organizations, if they're more of a conservationist bent rather than like an outright, animal rights bent. And the easy way to demonstrate that in California is the Sierra Nevada bighorn sheep population is crashing. down in its southern range, and the biologists who work with that population down there are like legit biologists, and they're like lion depredation on these wild sheep is the number one contributor to the crash that's happened, and that's an endangered species listed animal.
Yeah.
So
I know.
Well, when I was down in the Santa Monica Mountains probably 5 years ago, I got to run around with a state mountain lion biologist and attempt to live trap mountain lions down there. Super fun, super cool. This guy's very invested in mountain lions, and really that specific population because
Sure.
of some of the stuff that we mentioned. But the statewide ban on foothold traps in California, right? We were packing around giant cage traps, live animal cage traps for something the size of a mountain lion. So this guy could do research to benefit mountain lions.
They didn't put a research component into that band?
They didn't. They didn't.
know
We talked
that.
a lot about that.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And so
there is a
Yeah.
research component in 117 relative to hound pursuit, which is one thing that I really hope can
and that's
be.
what this guy was like. He's never hunted mountain lions,
Yeah.
but because he gets to work with houndsmen to trap mountain lions, particularly like the nuisance ones. So they'll go in, dart them, collar them, relocate them sometimes, stuff like that. He was like, yeah, I don't care if you kill some mountain lions. You know, these guys seem great. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then that is something that we should ask. Like, Wyatt, what are your thoughts on mountain lions? Do you feel like you'd add them to the hunt list if you had the chance? Do you think they should all go away? Where'd you end up?
I don't think they should all go away, but I think you should be able to hunt them, or at least do something to bring the population down, I guess. But I don't think they should fully go away.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I think about it.
That's a mature
That
perspective.
seems pretty level-headed.
You know, for in your situation, that's a mature perspective, I'd say.
Yeah. But if you bring up Colorado, like we talked about, right? Like, guy gets swatted while he's sitting in his hot tub. Guy gets attacked on his front porch. Kid gets attacked in the backyard. Lots and lots of dogs, all within the last 4 years.
Right.
And still, right now, there's a citizens' initiative to ban lion hunting completely.
Yep.
Right? So it's like this type of stuff, this like horrible tragedy that you and your family have had to go through, like it doesn't move the needle apparently, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think it could, but it's going to do that with the sort of like middle of the road fence sitters who maybe are not, don't have particularly strong feelings about it one way or another, but could be pretty easily swayed by an emotional appeal to them. And the animal rights NGOs are really adept at producing what I would refer to as straight up propaganda to appeal to, an otherwise generally just not particularly well-informed voting, public. And that's where I think we have an opportunity here, and what I'm attempting to do by, again, writing about it for something like the New York Times Magazine, because that's going to reach a readership that otherwise really wouldn't get a well laid out clarification on what the actual stakes are if you go down this road.
May not be layered in the mailbox with Bugle and DU.
Exactly. I mean, let's not kid
Backcountry
ourselves.
Journal.
I mean, to a degree, I mean, this is sort of preaching to the converted, right? And I'm glad we have the opportunity to do that, because you probably knew as many people in Missoula back in the day that I did, who, they go there and they, enroll in the environmental studies program or whatever, and before you know it, they're interested in ungulate hunting, but they still just can't wrap their heads around, predator hunting, lion hunting, bear hunting. And I remember having this argument with people in the late 90s, after having watched what happened around Northern California, even in that era with the increased lion presence, once they prohibited hound pursuit from houndsmen. So this has been a long time coming. It's been a very long road. It just happened to strangely land in this family, you know.
How long is the article you're working on going to be?
I pitched it as 5,000 to 7,000 words, and they came back at 4,000 words, but I have a feeling that might wind up being kind of elastic once I get into it, because there are so many different layers of complexity to this.
Well, that's a lot of complexity.
Yeah.
That's a good chunk of writing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And people will find it in the New York Times Magazine.
Right. Yeah, it's the magazine that's it's somewhat independent, as I understand it, from the actual, print newspaper. But, it's it's on a par with, Harper's or the Atlantic or the New Yorker or whatever. It's kind of that type of, high-toned think piece, sort of.
Yeah, yeah.
So.
Well, the Brooks family, thank you, man. Appreciate you coming on to talk about this.
Thanks for having us.
A tragedy and I think an important issue for people who are interested in wildlife and natural resources in America, and how those questions and policies we make have ways of coming around and impacting people's lives and thinking through decisions we make in a way that gives us the ability to stay fluid and adaptive. So I appreciate you coming on, man.
Yeah. Thanks
All right. Thank you, Wyatt.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it, buddy.
Thank you, Steve. I really appreciate what you're doing and appreciate the opportunity. And I knew that this would be a terrific way for Wyatt to tell his story to a community that cares about it.
Oh, definitely. Thank you, man.
Yep.